Hello and welcome to the video. Today I'm going to be going through my top 5 exercises for you to grow your shoulders. Now, before I start, as ever, there are 4 things I'm looking for from an exercise when judging how good it is. How much of a stretch the muscle gets during the exercise, how much of a contraction the muscle gets, how isolated the muscle is, and how heavy you can load the exercise. Of those factors, I prioritize isolation. That is just my opinion. I think that if you isolate a muscle with an exercise, it has to respond to the training stimulus and you'll improve it. Whereas if you do like heavy compound lifts, you'll hear people say you need to lift big weights to get big muscles. Your genetic strong points can take over. And then if you're trying to train a lagging body part, it can be left further and further behind. So I prioritize isolation, but that is just my opinion. Along with all of this list today, feel free to disagree with me in the comments down below, but without further ado, let's get to it. And coming in at spot number 5 are incline presses. All types of incline presses, barbell incline presses, dumbbell incline presses, Smith machine incline presses, dedicated shoulder presses. All of them are great. Now, when you do this, you want to make sure that the incline is a high incline. If you use a low degree of incline, you are actually prioritizing the chest when doing that exercise. To make sure that you're targeting the delts, I suggest you use at least a 60-degree incline for your bench all the way up to 90 degrees. The benefits of this exercise are that you can load it heavy and it has a good range of motion. A great stretch at the bottom, particularly if you're using dumbbells. If you're using a barbell, your hands are fixed, but with dumbbells, you can arc them all the way around and feel the stretch on the delt at the bottom, and they have a good contraction. Ironically, the bigger your delts are, the harder it is to contract overhead because your delt sort of gets in the way. But if you're watching this video, you're trying to grow your delts, so that's probably not a problem that you're going to have. The biggest issue with this exercise is that it does not isolate the delt at all. The triceps are heavily involved, and if you're using a flatter incline, if you're on like a 45 or even the 60-degree incline, you will use some of your chest. The other weakness of this, which isn't a weakness of the exercise, it's more what it's training. This exercise trains the front delt. And that is not the head of the delt that most people need to work on. 90% of people who want to grow the delts do not need to grow their front delts. It is their side and rear delts that need to grow. The side delts are what gives you that nice big cap delts, and the rear delts are the same. When you look at someone from side on, they're what gives them that back capped delt. That is what you're going to try and hit when training delts, and incline presses train the front delt. It is trained all the time as well through presses, on your chest days, on your tricep days. Every time you press, your front delt will be involved. It gets trained loads anyway. That is why this exercise is only at spot number 5. It's there for if you want to train the front delt, but the rest of this list prioritizes the lateral and the rear heads of the delt, which are what I suggest you should focus on when trying to get big delts. And coming in at spot number 4 is the dumbbell rear delt fly. Now this is a great exercise for targeting that often over-neglected rear delt. The strengths of this exercise are that at the top you get a great contraction on the rear delt, and if performed correctly, you isolate the rear delt very well. The weakness of this exercise is that if you perform incorrectly, you will involve your upper back a lot. On a lot of exercises, it is okay to use momentum. On things like rows, if you use a little bit of a momentum to help you get the dumbbells up and you contract really hard and control on the eccentric, that's fine. On this exercise, you have to use no momentum. In order to isolate that rear delt and target it, you cannot use momentum. You have to think really hard about not involving the upper back and not shrugging. You have to try and lead with the back of your hand and the back of your arms to hit that rear delt and make sure that it contracts. In conjunction with this, you can't load this exercise heavy because every time you do, you will involve that upper back. So you can only load the rear delt very light. And the final drawback is that you don't get a great stretch on the muscle. At the bottom, gravity is just pulling straight down through your arms. The rear delt is not being challenged. There is no resistance going against the rear delt at the bottom. There's no stretch on the rear delt. The effective range of motion for this exercise is actually quite small. You have to not go all the way down because otherwise your rear delt just rests, and you can't go too high because, again, the upper back takes over and contracts. So you have to try and stay really strict and just move the dumbbells in a small range of motion to squeeze that rear delt. However, when you do master the technique, this is a brilliant exercise. You will get a fantastic contraction at the top, and if you don't go all the way down, you'll keep the tension on the rear delt for the whole exercise, and it does isolate the rear delt very well. It just takes a bit of practice to get used to the technique, but a fantastic exercise. Coming in at spot number 3 is the rear delt cable crossover. This is also training the rear delt similarly to the dumbbell rear delt fly. However, it has one massive advantage over the dumbbell rear delt fly, which is that it has a fantastic stretch at the bottom of the movement. When you're at the bottom of a cable crossover, because the cables are pulling outwards, you get a great stretch on the muscle. This also means that the effective range of motion for the rear delt is larger in this exercise compared to the dumbbell rear delt fly. The other advantages are still the same. You still get a great contraction at the top, and if you perform the exercise right, it isolates the rear delt very well. The drawbacks are the same. You can't load it heavy because it involves the upper back, and if you do the wrong technique, use any momentum, the upper back will take over. With this variation of the exercise, with the cables, it is tempting to lean back and use momentum, but remember that that will start to target the upper back and will shift the tension off the rear delts. So don't do that. Because you use light weight on the exercise, you should still be able to stand and do your reverse cable crossovers without leaning back and using momentum. These are my favorite exercise to train the rear delts. And coming in at spot number 2 is the Arnold Press. This is similar to the incline presses from before, however, it has a few distinct advantages. The first one is that when performing incline presses, I've found that many people experience shoulder pain, particularly when doing dumbbell ones. They lower the dumbbells all the way down and they feel a pain at the bottom. Because of where you lower the dumbbells to in the Arnold press, your shoulders are in a much more comfortable position and do not experience that pain. And the second main advantage is that you isolate the delts more compared with the chest. When you normally press up, the chest helps contract to get the weight up on an incline press. However, in an Arnold press, because your arms are moving outwards, the chest is lengthening. It's doing the opposite of contracting to help get the weight up. It's actually lengthening, so all the work has to be done with the delt to help get the dumbbell up. So it's more comfortable and isolates the delt more. It still suffers from the fact that it trains the front delt, which is not the best head of the delt to hit, but it does also, as you're going out, hit the lateral head of the delt, the side delt. That is the main head of the delt that people should try and train in order to look big and aesthetic, getting those nice cap delts. So this is definitely an improvement on the incline press, and this is the variation I'd do if I was just training shoulders and wanted to do a press. I would do Arnold presses. If you train shoulders in conjunction with other body parts like chest, maybe do an incline press, hit the front delts in conjunction with chest and triceps if you were doing a push day, then exercise number 5 on the list of incline presses would be great. But if you are just trying to hit the delts alone, you're just doing a shoulder session and you don't want to hit your chest and triceps, I would use the Arnold press. And coming in spot number 1 are side laterals. All side laterals, cable side laterals, machine side laterals, and free weight side laterals. So dumbbell side laterals or kettlebell side laterals. All side laterals are good side laterals. They target the side or the lateral head of the delt. That is the head of the delt that I think you should prioritize when training your shoulders. The advantages of them are you get a great contraction at the top. With cable and machine side laterals, you have tension throughout the entire movement, including at the bottom. With free weight side laterals, you don't have that because gravity grounds straight down through your arm. There's no tension on the delt at the bottom. To overcome this, you shouldn't lower all the way to the bottom. You should just lower part of the way to keep the tension on the delt and then go straight back up. And finally, they isolate the delt very well if performed correctly. Similarly to on rear delt, dumbbell rear delt flies and rear cable crossovers, you need to make sure that you're not involving your upper back. So don't use momentum, don't load too heavy to involve the back, and don't go too far past 90 degrees. That will just start to contract your traps. If you do all of that, they are a fantastic exercise. The only drawback is that you can't load them very heavy. It is a joke in the fitness space that no matter what you do, your side laterals will never get stronger. You could train for 10 years and your bench could double and your side laterals will still be the same. That is fine. We're not worried about that as long as the side of your delts are growing. Now, I do need to say that the number one exercise, the real number one exercise, is a mix of exercises. There is something called the law of accommodation, which is that if you do the same thing over and over, you actually go backwards, you detrain and get worse. So even side laterals, number one exercise on this list, if you just did them, you would hit a point where you plateau, your delts won't get any bigger, and they might even start detraining as they get more efficient at moving the weight that you are doing. In order to overcome this, you should change up exercises. This is what Arnold meant when he said shock the muscle. You want to apply a new training stimulus and shock your muscle into adapting, and that is what's going to keep it growing. That is about it for this episode. I hope you did enjoy the video. If you did, drop it a like and subscribe and comment and share and all of that good stuff. There will be a link to my coaching services in the description. Go and check that out and have a great day.